today Warhammer Community has given us further info on some of the Primaris Space Marines coming out, presumably in the 9th edition starter set, so let's take a look at what they've shown us. Hello and welcome back to Auspex Tactics, the strategy focused 40k channel where we've been looking at the unfolding developments of 9th edition over the last couple of days. Yesterday we got the big drop that 9th edition was coming, and we saw what looks like part of the Games Workshop starter set for 9th edition with a whole ton of really cool new Primaris Space Marines, including veterans with storm shields and power swords, Space Marine Primaris bikers, now confirmed as Outriders, and a character who looks like an executioner type Primaris chaplain, who is very much in that role and is now confirmed to be a Judiciar. We've also seen a bunch of new Necrons, which I'll be covering in a video very shortly, but I thought we'd take a look at the Primaris Space Marines first. This is mainly just much better image quality and a few juicy details on their arms and armament and role in the chapter, so let's dive straight in and take a look. So first of all, this is the guy who was on the Warhammer 40,000 page, but not actually talked about in the main preview, and he is confirmed to be what we thought he was, which is a Primaris Lieutenant with a Storm Shield and a Volkite pistol. They didn't really let any other details go on this guy, but it's nice to have a much cleaner and more polished image. He appears to have a combat weapon of some sort, probably a power sword or mastercrafted version, and is bearing the same sort of iron halo that we're also seeing on these Bladeguard veterans that appear to be marching up alongside him. As we saw from the previous leaked image, it does appear that he's accompanying a captain who has a storm shield, who I'd imagine is the guy with the skeleton on the front of his storm shield from the Warhammer 40k cinematic trailer. I suppose we couldn't have a Primaris release from Games Workshop without introducing another Primaris Lieutenant, but I guess we'll forgive them as this one does look pretty epic to be honest. He's probably my favourite out of all the Lieutenants so far, and more importantly, he's been released alongside a whole bunch of more interesting units. Let's jump over to those Bladeguard veterans now. Again, we saw these in the picture earlier, but it's good to have some really good close-ups of them, all painted up, and Games Workshop have clarified a few details, including their name, the Bladeguard veterans, that they are indeed first company veterans, which we could sort of imply anyway from their white helmeted power armour, and much like company champions, they are armed with mastercrafted power swords, which I presume will be the standard affair of a standard power sword, but damage 2 instead of damage 1. To be honest, I'm glad that they've got a little bit more bite than standard power weapons, as if we looked at the profile for this guy, I'm sure they'll have a 3+ invul save, 2 wounds as per the standard Primaris. So without a decent power weapon to match, he'd be very much of a heavy anvil, but not really all that good in offence, much like the Astra Militarum Crusaders. I think having damage 2 on the power sword means that there'll be more than a incidental annoyance to more heavily armoured foes such as other Primaris Marines, or heavier targets such as vehicles or monsters. I would also be very surprised if they didn't have a similar sort of bodyguard rule to the Victrix Honour Guard that we saw with Marnius Calgar to be able to tank wounds for characters. I think the sculpt is absolutely epic as well. I think people have wanted to see some proper Primaris veterans armed with different power weapons for a while, so I'm very happy to see this kit. I wonder if we do get a multi-part kit somewhere down the line, whether we might see other power weapon options for them. I would love to see some guys like this with Thunderhammers or Power Fists. I hope it's not what is likely a monopose kit as we're seeing here, and they will flesh out these guys even further, as multi-part customizable Primaris veterans would be absolutely epic. Next we've got a few more shots of the Primaris Assault Intercessors. Of course we already saw these in the preview the other day. They're confirmed to be armed with chainswords and heavy bolt pistols. We don't know what battlefield role they'll be, whether they'll be troops or elites or fast attack, although my personal guess is they're probably going to be troops, seeing as they look like they're part of that new starter box set, and I'd find it very unlikely for Games Workshop to release a faction in a starter set without making at least one unit troops. Out of these close-up reveals though, we can see that one of them is armed with a plasma pistol, what looks like the Sergeant, and that does have me hopeful that we might see some expanded options for the Sergeants. I would really like the Sergeant to be able to take a Power Fist or Thunderhammer, or we might well have a unit that's less good in assault than your standard Intercessors. Chainswords and heavy bolt pistols are great and all, but they are exactly what we have on Reavers at the moment, and they aren't exactly tearing up the competitive meta right now. So please Games Workshop, don't be too restrictive with the datasheet of the Sergeant on these guys. Again, maybe their options might be expanded if we do see a full multi-part kit for this following a easy build. I think one question on a lot of people's minds might be whether or not they have a jump pack option. My guess is probably not, based on the fact that they don't have the grav boot type things that the suppressors or inceptors have, but I wouldn't 100% rule it out. Next we have the bike-mounted Primaris Outriders. I believe that they have been mentioned in passing in previous Primaris fluff, so I think that people had already guessed that they might be called this. I think that the looks have been divided on these guys. I've had a few people say that they really don't like them. I must be honest, I think that these guys look absolutely terrific for Space Marine bikes. Very blocky and chunky and absolutely brutal. I will definitely be getting some of these to paint up for my own Space Marine force. It looks like they're both armed with a chainsword and heavy bolt pistol, as well as their standard twin bolt gun or twin bolt rifles, so I think they should have a decent role to fill in a Primaris army, hopefully exceptionally fast moving troopers who are reasonably decent at shooting and in combat. If they are armed with twin bolt rifles, they'll pack a bit of a punch at range as well. As with bolted discipline, they'll be moving and rapid firing up to 30 inches with 4 shots apiece, meaning that they could be pretty tricky for enemy infantry units to get to grips with, and when they do get close, they might be able to pull off a bit of a countercharge with those chainswords. Finally, we have this Executioner type character, who I kept on calling an Executioner type character in the video the other day. And it seems that Games Workshop did a good job with the model, because that's exactly what he apparently is. This guy is a Space Marine Judiciar, and that funky power sword with a flattened head is apparently an Executioner blade, and it's another type of relic blade. I thought just from the looks of him the other day, he looks like one of the dedicated melee anti-character units. Something a bit like either a company champion from Space Marines at the moment, or maybe the Chaos character, the Master of Executions. And I suspect he'll be following the Chaos example, probably being an HQ choice that's fairly cheap in points cost, and provides minimal if any buffs to the units around him, being primarily focused on just being a decent fighty character. As we can see in this picture even more clearly, he also has black clad power armour, implying that he might be part of the chaplaincy organisation within the chapter. So it's quite cool that we might be seeing a new generic sort of chaplain, to differentiate away from just the standard chaplains that you can field already. So that's a lot of cool models to see. Thank you for Games Workshop for showing these off. Always good to have a little bit more clarity rather than peering at those very blurry images. Of course there'll still be more to come, I'm sure. There's those Gravis guys with the melter weapons, what appeared to be a new ancient in that box set, the captain himself and what looked like another chaplain, and maybe that Primaris flyer that we saw in the grainy images before. In any case, I think this is already enough to be very excited about from a Space Marine point of view. Really hoping that that box set is at least somewhat reasonably priced, because I strongly suspect I might be picking it up in any case. So thanks very much for listening to Auspex Tactics. Feel free to subscribe if you'd like to keep up with the 9th edition news, or just see some regular 40k Tactics content. If you're enjoying the channel and would like to support, I'd just like to mention the Patreon page I have down in the description below. Basically, it's what allows me to keep on making all of these videos quite so regularly, by focusing more time away from my real world job and not just doing it in weekends and evenings. If you have been enjoying the channel, any support is greatly appreciated, and in addition, Patreons also enjoy a few other benefits. Things like seeing videos early, voting on polls to see what comes next on the channel, and there's the occasional prize draw such as the one happening in a week's time, where we post out some miniatures to one winner, and this one's going to be almost 1,000 points of Primaris Marines taken from 2 No Fear kits. If any of that sounds good, then please feel free to give the Patreon a look. It is down in the description below, and a big thank you to all of you guys who are already supporting. I couldn't do this without you. In any case, thanks for listening, and I'll hope to see you guys for more 9th edition news in the future.